Dude, that's the biggest bass that I've caught.
How great was that sound? How good is that?
Anyway, let's hear for him with his 10-pound, 7-ounce bag today. That trophy off. Let's get a picture. I'm gonna get off the stage.
Oh, buddy.
I mean, they're eating it.
Oh. Yeah, buddy. Yes, hell yes.
That was honestly such a sick bite.
All right, now one of the things that really scares me is the idea that I'll be 71 days sitting on my porch and retired and old talking to my grandkids and not being able to say to them that I gave life a go. Who would I be if I didn't chase my dreams, right? So if you've been following my social media stuff, I guess for the last 8 months, you'll know that a bunch of opportunities have opened up for this channel and me over in the US, and that is why we have packed everything up from Australia, particularly in Victoria, and moved here to Florida, which is on the east coast of the US. And whilst it's been great, let me tell you that there have been some significant challenges, which is why over the last 6 months you haven't seen a whole lot of YouTube content. Yes, we're pretty active on Instagram, but not so much on YouTube. Finding somewhere to live here in the US, being away from the family and the kids for a good 8 months now, training and getting grips with the new job, and everything in between, from getting a US social security number to a driver's license to understanding the credit rating system that they've got over here, and selling absolutely everything that we own to move over here has been a giant battle to get through. And it's funny, the job that I used to have in Australia meant that I moved every 3 to 4 years, but moving to another country permanently and saying goodbye to Australia is just a different thing than moving around a state or between the major cities every 3 or 4 years. Now, don't get me wrong, whilst I loved my job in Australia, the writing was really on the wall that it was over. By trade, I'm a pilot, and I realized that I wasn't gonna fly with the Air Force anymore, so I'd gotten to a stage where the desk job was waiting for me. In the Air Force, I saw the world, and I saw some pretty amazing experiences with some pretty incredible people from the Middle East through to the Pacific and Asia and our local area. And honestly, I was always going to the airlines at some stage, but my time in the RAF, in the military, was done. The ride was wild, but it was time to clock out. So officially 8 months ago, we left it all behind and fly 747s here in the US. We jumped on the plane in Melbourne, landed in LA, and then connected through to Miami to start this new life with 4 luggage bags. And we crammed everything I owned into a hotel room and lived there for the next 6 months. But let me tell you, Miami was crazy. The main language that they speak there is Spanish. In the first 3 or 4 restaurants that I ate at, there was no English whatsoever. It was a huge culture shock. I didn't expect it from the US, but that Cuban, Latino, Spanish, Puerto Rican, Mexican influence is pretty heavy there. If you haven't been to Miami, it's kind of like the Gold Coast. Some places have a lot of money, some places not so much. And Miami's about the size of Sydney, so I think the Gold Coast just plussed up to a city size in a big way. The culture was wild and different, and whilst people struggled to understand me and I struggled to understand them, I was admittedly not so much alone. There was a class of about 20 Australians that were starting that 747 course with me, all in the same situation, all stuck in a hotel for 6 months. And I guess the good thing there was that there was always a beer to have down at the barbecue. Now, fishing for me was the thing that I did with my grandfather, and when I came back from deployment number 3, I needed something to get me away from the military and aviation. So for me, I found fishing again, and it gave me an outlet to still think critically about what I was doing, but not with the same consequences as the military deployments and military aviation in particular. Over the next few years, fishing turned into a bit of a journey, and much more than just the act of fishing and sharing it with you guys. So when I spent 6 months in the hotel, I really found it challenging for 2 reasons. One, I miss the family, but the other one is that thing that had grounded me for so long, that is fishing and creating content and sharing the journey, was really removed. No boat, no kayak, no gear, no projects that had really helped me out over the last few years.
And obviously 6 months away from the family is a pretty long time. I guess to quantify it, it's 6 months of, or it's 180 days ride of missed breakfasts and lunches and dinners with your kids, and 180 mornings of those kids not running and jumping into your bed to wake you up in the morning with the big smiles and cuddles, and that was really challenging. This is a spinnerbait. Got a couple of fish on here. I've only been out on this lake once or twice before. I haven't found many fish, so we're kind of in the discovery mode about what this lake holds. It's called Black Lake in Orlando. So to kind of mitigate the challenges that I was having in Miami, I went off and drove up to Orlando, which is about 3 hours to the north, and bought this boat. The boat probably took, I don't know, I want to say 3, maybe 4 months to come in, and then it's taking a little bit of time to rig it. But in preparation for this, we started to jump on the internet whilst in that hotel room and learn as much as I could about fishing. Watched the Bassmaster Classic online and just started watching a lot of fishing YouTubers that they've got over here in the US and learning about when to throw what, how to throw what, and started to slowly accumulate fishing gear. The difficulty was I didn't really have an address, so all the bros and friends and networks, I didn't really have an address to give to them so that they could send stuff to me to help me out. And admittedly they did help me out. There's a lot of people throwing info my way. I just didn't have the capacity to accept that. And the other thing that I thought I would do, let me change this up a little bit. There we go. And the other thing that I thought I'd do was register for the Bassmaster Open. There was a lake up north, maybe about a 7-hour drive up in Decatur, Alabama. And in the same way that fishing as a co-angler in Australia teaches you a lot on the ABT series, I was hoping to find that in the Bassmaster series here. And let me tell you, hasn't helped me learn how to cast though. On the first day of the 5-day pre-fish with 3 tournament days, 2 are fished by the co-angler with a knockout round on the 3rd. But on the first day, there were 200 boats competing in a local high school tournament. Now, when I say 200 boats, I don't mean like John boats. I mean boats like this with a pair of high school boat bros that are fishing and a boat captain, because those guys are too young to hold a boat license here in the US. So it's 600 fishing guys with all the latest gear and boat on the water at a local tournament. That's how big this sport is. Not only that, but it was pre-fish for the first day of the Bassmaster Open, and all those guys are qualifying for the Elite Series, or they're trying to. So add into the mix another, I guess, 150 to 200 boats, depending on whether they're pre-fish plans or what they were planning to do for pre-fish, on the water again. Day 1 of tournament fishing here in the US for me was was pretty crazy. But similar to Australia, everybody was welcoming and awesome with the knowledge that they had and shared absolutely everything.
They're pre-spawn heavy and they're almost spawning, and that's kind of what you chase.
And I met up with a good friend of mine, Tommy Wood, who, oh, that's going to be a problem to get back. That's in between. Uh-oh. Yeah, we're going for a walk here. Who ended up winning the event. Now, quick question here while we come back. If you are interested in me doing a video on that whole Bassmaster Open event, let me know in the comments below. I've got all of Tommy Wood's footage.
Oh yeah, baby.
And I've got all of my footage for the 4 or 5 days. Yep.
Oh, big. That's a small one. That's the first deal on this small. Good job.
She feels heavier.
That's smaller. You gonna get him?
Yeah, I'm gonna get over there and help
Oh,
it.
that's a lot.
Look at that. Buddy, that's fishing right there. I'll be interested to know if you want to actually see that. So Tommy winning that first event was pretty crazy.
Anyway, let's hear for him with his 10-pound, 7-ounce bag today. Let's have him hand that trophy off. Let's get a picture. I'm going to get off the stage.
I think he was the first Australian to ever win an Open, but Tommy winning that tournament alone was well worth the 8-hour drive up and back. We actually celebrated in Nashville a little after that, and things got a little bit definitely got a little bit crazy. That was a new propeller. One of the biggest observations that I've had with the fishing industry over here is that everybody is really willing to help the Australian. Now, I don't know if that's an element of Carl coming across here and being loved by everybody, but the welcome that I've received has been absolutely crazy. A huge shout out goes to a guy called Jeremy Nepper and his wife Jane. So Jeremy helped me buy this boat. He is a guy I met whilst I was doing some Phoenix research to find the boat that I wanted. Truthfully, I already knew which one I wanted, but he helped me out with the purchase a lot.
Oh!
You're just gonna have to come with me.
Oh, buddy.
You're gonna talk about eating though. I mean, they're eating it.
His wife just happened to be a realtor who in turn helped my family find a house to live in. And you've probably seen him on social media a fair bit. He actually has invited me out. He bought a brand new 721 that arrived a couple months before my boat did. And he and I have been doing some local team stuff together, and he's been showing me around Florida fishing, everything from those big largemouth from popping frogs under docks. Oh, that's a good one. Popping frogs under docks to throwing these giant topwater lures that just get absolutely bulked by 5-6 pound fish over and over and over. And the cool thing is Jeremy lives about 5 minutes away from where I am now, so we've already talked about being travel buddies. No joy. Now either these fish aren't sitting on the docks, which is highly likely. Wouldn't mind trying these sticks that are just around the corner over here. Now, some of you know this, and I'm a little embarrassed to admit it, but in Australia, 4-pound spinning gear is our thing. In the US, the fishing is different, as you can see from some of those clips. Down here in Florida, it's about having poles like this, 7'10", line test 17 to 30 pound or 30 to 65 pound braid, which is what's on this rod right now, 65 pound braid. And it's about getting this into those sticks, getting that bite, because the fish, the largemouth bass, aren't as line shy as Australian brim. and then reefing down and cranking that fish back. Now, it doesn't matter. If you've got your fish, if you've got your bait all the way back in those docks behind those poles, and say that does a 90-degree turn, it doesn't matter because you've got that 65-pound braid on those wooden posts. You can just grind that thing all day, and what invariably happens is you get a fish, it swims off to the side, you get that, you set that hook set, and then you just crank down and watch the fish ricochet and bounce as you just pull that 5-6 pound fish, you know, that 4 kilo fish, 3 kilo fish back to the boat and just skull drag it. It's a pretty crazy thing to do. So for any Australian fishermen coming across here, the skill sets, I guess, in the south of America are a little bit different to what we have in Australia. That's not entirely true for the rest of the country though. You do have smallmouth bass up to the north of the country, maybe about the top half of the US, and in the top half of the country, and those smallmouth do lend themselves to the techniques that we're used to in Australia. Now this bite doesn't seem to be working, so we are going to move up around the corner. Lads, that is American fishing right there. See if I can get it again. I'm shaking after that. It was so good. That was a miss, eh? That was a really upsetting miss. Got a fish following it. Hit the thing. Hit it, hit it, hit it, hit it, hit it, hit it. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh! Man, I gotta learn how to set the hook. I am just such a rookie at this. It's not funny. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness me. How crazy is this, hey? Definitely want the worm. Just drop that in there. Let it sink for a little bit. I'm too light. Usually you need a bit of a heavier weight on this thing. So you can punch through the pad. So this is only like a 1/4 ounce. And basically I'm just throwing it into a hole and then just up and down in that hole. If there's any fish in that little area, yeah, buddy! You! Spat the hook. Oh, wow! Yeah, buddy. Yeah. Woo. So long story short, I did this cast here. On the top, went across the tree, and a fish from this jetty here smashed. It was a good sized fish. Would have been at least 3 pounds, maybe you know, tops 5. But you can see it just crunch. Kind of waited for a little bit and tied this new lure on, which the action on it is much nicer than what was going on before. But the long and short of it is, we now have our lure back. Well, we lose this one because I was telling the story. And the fishing has been a little slow this morning, but it is embarrassing to admit that Baitcasters, and my experience with Baitcasters has been quite limited. I'm very much a rookie in that space, and the reason for it is that, like I said before, that light line that we're used to using in Australia. So I guess in the 4 months prior to moving over here, I got myself some Baitcaster, and I'll show you some footage here, Baitcaster and some light line, and started to learn how to use the equipment and develop some thumb control that I knew I would need over here. I basically spent 10 to 15 minutes every afternoon out the front with a 1/2 ounce jig head and a Baitcaster combo, and would practice pitching and flipping and casting and just aiming at whatever I could, whether that was the neighbours' letterboxes or a tree or just some unanimous random object. And gotta admit, I don't know how I got away with not hitting a car. Admittedly, I did come pretty close a couple times.
Lure came off. I almost hit a car.
Man, this popper is not swimming the way that there was a fish behind it. No frog, let's try and spin it back. So it's been a gradual process trying to pick up these different skills and learn, I guess, how people fish here in the States and what fish go after here. 5, Independence Day, freedom.
So all of that combined is the reason that we are in Orlando, not only to fly planes with the family over here, but to do a fair bit of fishing. Now, if you're not familiar with Florida or the US, I'll paint you a bit of a picture here. To the south of where we are right now, we have a couple of the biggest lakes in the country that are known for big largemouth bass. Now that is Lake Okeechobee and the Kissimmee system. In the chain, or in the immediate area where I am now, we have the Butler chain of lakes. To the north, we've got Lake Apopka, and then to the north, we've got the Harris chain of lakes. Now the Harris chain is a really famous water system, and I think it was the Hobie BOS round earlier this year where the largest recorded bags ever were taken out of there. It's a regular on the Bassmaster Elite series as well, and the MLF, FLW, whatever the other series is called, I always forget the names, BPT. To the northeast, we've got Lake George, which is unique because it's got brackish water. It's actually fed by a saltwater system, the St. John's River, that leads out through Jacksonville, which is a pretty famous country music place. All in all, we're about 8-ish hours from Tennessee, which I guess is a normal Sydney to Malakuta drive. And Tennessee, I guess, whilst it's to the south of the US, it's kind of in the middle of the Bass Trail. And if we do go down that tournament series path, we're well positioned in there. So this is where we are now. I will say a big thank you for being patient over the last 7-ish months with the content. I know it hasn't been great, but right now we have 3 videos scheduled over the next 3 weeks, and that doesn't include the Bassmaster Open, the boat rig out, the FPV batteries that have just gone in, or that brand new power pole move review that I have some opinions on already, and it's only been on the water for a few times. It is wicked powerful, but there is a little bit of delay going on there between the foot pedal and the motor steering. Not to give too much away as my GoPro turns off, but I definitely stay tuned for that. Anyway, it's really good to be back in front of the camera. I hope you enjoyed the video. Stay safe until next time.
This one or the next one?